Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled you're here today because we're taking on an absolutely massive, completely fascinating subject. We're going to demystify the complex, dynamic web of the world's largest democracy. Indian politics isn't just about elections, you know? It's this vibrant, living story of history, diverse cultures, and rapid modern development all colliding on a global stage. So let's just dive right into it and unpack how this incredible system actually works.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with number 1, the roots of the republic. 2, the democratic framework. 3, influential political leaders. 4, driving domestic development. And 5, India on the global stage.
Section 1, Roots of the Republic, From Empires to Independence. To really get Indian politics, you've got to look back. For centuries, this region operated under these incredibly complex ancient civilizations, led by dynastic kingdoms and empires. But then, everything shifted in the 18th and 19th centuries with the arrival of British colonialism. The British brought in a highly centralized administration, heavily consolidating power. But this central control inadvertently acted like a spark. It ignited fierce nationalist movements across the entire subcontinent. After years of intense, relentless struggle, India finally gained its independence in 1947. And then just 3 years later, in 1950, they adopted a brand new constitution, establishing a democratic system that literally changed the course of their history forever. So what did that 1950 constitution actually create? A federal parliamentary democratic republic. Now, I know that's quite a mouthful, but it really just means power is shared between the national and state levels, and it operates with two key executives. You've got a president who acts as the ceremonial head of state, and a prime minister who serves as the active head of government. And the whole shebang functions within a massive, highly competitive, multi-party electoral framework. Moving right along to Section 2, the democratic framework, institutions and issues.
Imagine trying to balance power across over 1 billion citizens. It's like a giant puzzle. To pull this off, the government is divided into 3 main branches. On the legislative side, you have the Indian Parliament, which is made up of the Rajya Sabha, that's the upper house, and the Lok Sabha, the lower house. Then, moving over to the executive branch, this is where you'll find the president, the vice president, the prime minister, and the council of ministers who actually enforce the laws. Finally, the judiciary branch keeps everything in check, operating through the Supreme Court, high courts, and various lower courts. It is a massive structural undertaking, all specifically designed to ensure that no single entity holds absolute power.
Dropping into that framework is India's vast multi-party system. Now, while there are countless regional players out there, some of the major national forces include the Indian National Congress, the Bharatiya Janata Party, the Communist Party of India, and the Aam Aadmi Party. Because the landscape is so incredibly diverse, it is standard practice for these parties to form alliances or coalitions just to gain power. This reality of coalition politics means that regional dynamics often have a massive and sometimes even a deciding influence on the national stage. But let's be real, governing a nation this diverse is no walk in the park. It comes with some profound challenges. The political landscape is constantly navigating complex issues like corruption, religious communalism, casteism, deep regional divides, and economic inequality. And these aren't just background noise, they are actively divisive topics. Political parties frequently use these specific social challenges to mobilize support among voters. It sparks heated debates and fundamentally shapes the direction of the country's domestic policy. Which leads us to Section 3, Influential Political Leaders Shaping the Nation. This brings up a really crucial question. Who actually builds the India we see today? To truly understand the current political climate, we have to take an objective look at the legacies of the key figures who steered the nation through its most critical eras. We absolutely have to start with Mahatma Gandhi. He played a pivotal role in the struggle to overthrow British colonial rule. By pioneering the philosophy of nonviolent resistance and civil disobedience, he didn't just lead a political movement, he inspired millions of people. His legacy is deeply, permanently woven into the fabric of the country, and it continues to influence Indian political thought even today. Once independence was officially won, the monumental job of actually building the nation's institutions fell to Jawaharlal Nehru, India's very first prime minister. He was a staunch advocate for secularism, democracy, and socialism. Nehru's policies were absolutely vital in those early years. He laid the essential foundations for India's modernization, establishing the economic and social structures that allowed the young republic to stabilize and eventually grow.
Next up is Indira Gandhi, the daughter of Jawaharlal Nehru and India's first female prime minister. She was undoubtedly one of the country's most powerful leaders, driving some serious economic and social transformation. However, her time in office is also marked by historical controversy, specifically regarding an authoritarian style of governance and the suspension of civil liberties during the declared emergency from 1975 to 1977. Jumping ahead a bit, the political landscape saw the rise of Atal Bihari Vajpayee, a prominent leader of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Serving as prime minister 3 separate times, Vajpayee is widely credited with really strengthening the Indian economy and significantly improving international relations. Notably, he also played a key role in overseeing the country's strategic nuclear tests in 1998, which firmly established India's defensive posture on the world stage.
And that brings us to the present day with Narendra Modi, India's current prime minister. A highly charismatic figure, Modi has received widespread praise for his ambitious efforts to modernize India's economy and overhaul its infrastructure. At the same time, his leadership has faced criticism regarding the handling of religious and ethnic tensions, along with ongoing debates surrounding his government's approach to civil liberties and human rights.
Let's pivot slightly to Section 4, driving domestic development policy into practice. So, how do these political shifts actually translate into real, tangible development? Well, politics in India directly dictates economic growth through major national initiatives. For example, in 2014, the Make in India initiative was launched specifically to encourage foreign companies to invest and promote local manufacturing. The goal? To boost employment and create a totally self-reliant economy. A year later, in 2015, they rolled out the Smart Cities mission, aiming to develop sustainable, inclusive cities equipped with modern transportation and infrastructure. These are direct, textbook examples of how political will turns into concrete domestic development. Think about the numbers 6 to 14. What do they represent here? Well, this specific age group is perhaps one of the most powerful examples of policy impacting daily life. Back in 2009, the political system passed the Right to Education Act, guaranteeing free and compulsory education for all children in India between the ages of 6 and 14. It really highlights why understanding politics matters so much. It literally dictates the quality of healthcare and education available to everyday citizens. Finally, Section 5, India on the global stage, a rising powerhouse. If you want to understand India's foreign policy, you've got to grasp one core concept: non-alignment. What this means is that India actively chooses not to align itself permanently with any specific global superpower or political bloc. Instead, it seeks to maintain friendly, independent relations across all sorts of different regions. This strategic flexibility is a real game changer. It allows India to prioritize its own economic and security interests while navigating a highly complex global political climate entirely on its own terms. But don't mistake non-alignment for isolation. Far from it. India is highly proactive. They have a massive global engagement footprint. For instance, did you know India is a major contributor of troops to United Nations peacekeeping operations worldwide? Regionally, they're heavily involved in promoting cooperation through organizations like SAARC, the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, and BIMSTEC, which focuses on technical and economic cooperation in the Bay of Bengal. They are effectively leveraging their growing economic and military power to have a much greater say in international affairs. Which leaves us with this final thought. India's journey from diverse ancient empires to the world's largest multi-party democracy is nothing short of remarkable. As it continues to navigate its immense domestic challenges, and as its economic and military power continues to surge, we have to ask, how will India's unique, dynamic brand of democracy shape the future of global politics? It is a truly fascinating question to consider as we watch this rising powerhouse continue to evolve. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I will see you next time.